This presentation introduces you to measurement and concludes the 4 steps of effective public relations we have been discussing during this module. Once again, those steps are research, planning, communication, and measurement. Measurement determines whether the objectives of our public relations efforts have been achieved. You will remember that in the planning stage, we set objectives for the campaign. Those objectives might have been informational, like raising awareness that heart disease is the leading cause of death among women, or motivational, such as increasing the number of women who are screened each year for heart disease. Measurement is important because it lets us know whether our money has been well spent and whether we are helping the organization achieve its goals. Organizations often require all their departments to show how they add value to the bottom line, including public relations. We can also use measurement to see if our campaign is working while it is ongoing and make tweaks as necessary. These are some of the questions that you might ask yourself in the measurement stage of a PR campaign. Some will inform you on improvements for future reference, such as whether the campaign was adequately planned, what was unforeseen, and what improvements you might make in the future. Answering other questions will help you determine whether your campaign was successful, such as whether the objectives were achieved and the audience was reached. The PR effectiveness yardstick is helpful to understand the levels of measurement for PR programs. At the most basic level, you are measuring whether your press release was picked up by a news organization, which is called a media placement, and the audiences of those news organizations. This level isn't very helpful because it doesn't indicate the impact of your efforts on the audience. The second level measures retention, comprehension, awareness, and reception of the message, which are informational objectives. Although the intermediate level of measurement is better than basic, it still only tells us whether people received and understood our message and not whether they changed anything about their attitudes or behavior because of it. At the advanced level, we are measuring behavior, attitude, and opinion change, which are motivational objectives and often the ultimate goal of any PR campaign. As mentioned in the presentation on planning, a campaign might set output objectives. When we measure those output objectives, we count how many pieces we produced. We might say that we sent out press releases to 50 news organizations or that we printed 4,000 brochures for a trade show. Although this type of measurement isn't even on the PR yardstick, some practitioners might use it to demonstrate their effort, but it provides little information about the impact of the campaign. This type of measurement also emphasizes quantity over quality. Instead of sending out 50 press releases, it might have been better to send out 5 that were better targeted and more relevant to the news organization. When we talk about message exposure, we are referring to how successful we were in putting our message out there. Clippings from newspapers or mentions on news programs is the most widely used metric. Take a look at this video from the University of Tampa that is a compilation of television clips promoting their university.
Watching a couple dozen people at the University of Tampa.
Are you leaving here tonight as a decided voter for January 29th?
430 to 450 million years. And they've been around longer than any other group of vertebrates on the planet today.
Biologist Dan Huber's fascination with sharks started early.
8 o'clock now on this Tuesday morning, September 23rd, 2008. You are looking at the campus of the University of Tampa again.
Hey, Meredith, good morning again. Band, hit it!
Should be criticizing him for that. Here's the president.
President of University of Tampa, Ronald Vaughn.
After collecting the clips and mentions, practitioners might then calculate how many people were potentially exposed to the message. Media impressions is an estimate of the potential audience for a message. It is important to note that it's an estimate. Impressions are based on ratings, which are determined based on a sample of the population and what they are watching or reading. We don't even know if those people are in the room when our message is on TV, so they aren't very accurate. So let's say your message was on a local news program with an estimated 350,000 viewers that night, and also in a newspaper with a daily circulation of 600,000. Your total impressions were 950,000. Internet hits tell you how many people visited your website or social media profiles. PR practitioners are often tempted to use advertising equivalency as a measure of message exposure, but it has its own set of problems. What we are calculating here is what a news story about our organization would cost if we purchased the same size ad space in the newspaper or commercial time on TV. The main problem with using this message is that comparing advertising to PR is like comparing apples to oranges. Advertising is completely controlled, but a news story might not express your message completely or accurately. Systematic tracking measures mentions over time, and many variables can be included in the tracking, such as whether coverage was positive, negative, or neutral, and how many of the messages were included. A study on behalf of the Turkish government found that after a PR campaign to promote the country as a tourist destination, articles mentioning Turkey as the primary destination increased by 400%, and favorable articles increased by 90%. When you include a website or phone number in your message to allow people to get more information, the resulting information requests can be counted. For example, the CDC created a tongue-in-cheek zombie campaign to raise awareness about emergency preparedness and provided visitors to the website the opportunity to download this poster as well. The downloads would be considered information requests. Cost per thousand calculates how much it costs the PR agency to reach 1,000 people in the targeted public. To calculate this number, you take the total cost of the PR program and divide it by media impressions. Finally, audience attendance is a good way to measure message exposure. If you are holding a local conference for women, you can determine the success of your publicity methods by looking at attendance. If you did not sell out, then you need to reevaluate your publicity methods for the next year. The intermediate level of measurement addresses awareness, and the advanced level addresses attitude and behavior change. As mentioned before, awareness refers to whether the target public received the message, paid attention to it, understood it, and retained it. Surveys are used to ask people about the message and what they remembered. In the campaign to address heart disease in women, called Go Red for Women, evaluation of the campaign through surveys determined that awareness among women that heart disease was their #1 killer jumped from 34% to 57%. In addition, 18 months after the start of the campaign, 25% of women were also able to identify the red dress as the national symbol for women's heart disease. Day after recall asked participants to watch or read a message and then test their memory of it the next day. Measuring attitude change involves baseline or benchmark studies, which measure attitudes before, during, and after a campaign. It is difficult to isolate whether any changes in attitude were caused by the campaign or another intervening variable. Finally, action is often the ultimate goal of any PR campaign. Publicity is not the end goal, but what people do with the information, whether that means contributing money to a nonprofit organization, buying the products of a for-profit company, or getting the most qualified applicants for a university. As part of the Go Red for Women campaign, the Heart Truth Roadshow resulted in 4,000 women being screened for risk factors. In this presentation on PR measurement, we reviewed some basic measurement questions and the PR effectiveness yardstick. We also discussed measures of production, message exposure, and awareness, attitudes, and action. It is important to remember that action is often the ultimate goal of any PR campaign, and that success in one area doesn't necessarily lead to success in another. So if you get a lot of publicity, it doesn't mean that people will become more aware of your message. And if people are aware of your message, it doesn't mean they will then change their opinion and behavior.